So friends, we were discussing about how the merchandise exports provide the impetus to the growth of Indian economy. Now in the post-COVID scenario, we saw that the 443.8 billion US dollar was in the investment from April to December. Now the government made huge impetus in the merchandise export, but the huge impetus provided to the merchandise export, but without the impetus, the agricultural sector was still providing a huge balance to the economy. So we see that agriculture export were quite high during the pandemic situation. Although there was a decline in other situations of the market, still the agriculture sector was doing quite well and it was on a quite high position. So agriculture sectors rises because of agriculture produce and the systematized formalized system of market that was in virtue of APIDA, that is agriculture produce export market community. Then there was agriculture laws which were formulated before the pandemic situation in order to promote more and more export situation. So we see there was subtle decline from 39.1 in pre-pandemic situation, and which again rose to 41.9 in 2020, then again little decline and rise 2022. So various policies in order to provide huge impetus to the agriculture sector was provided. We will look forward into it. So current account balance was again very high position to US dollar 3.1 billion at 0.2% of GDP on the back of the sharp increase in the merchandise trade. However, the current account deficit remained lower than the deficit of US dollar 22.6 billion recorded. So remember this data. Now capital account and the financial account. The capital account grew to $65.6 billion in H1 financial year 2021 on the back of continued inflow of foreign investment. तो foreign investment बहुत सारे आते जा रहे थे इंडिया में, FDI, FII, FPI all were doing very well, but the rise of external commercial borrowing, that is ECB, and loans again make the banking capital very high. So these were higher in corresponding period of pre-pandemic level, but foreign investment constitute of foreign portfolio investment, foreign direct investment were comparatively very high, which constitute the main capital account, leading to higher balance of payment surplus. Again, the falling short of pre-pandemic level net foreign investment inflow, primarily driven by FDI, was very high to US dollar 25.4 billion. 25.4 billion US dollar. Then the percentage change, the comparative change which shown in the economy survey data was 5.6 in the first quarter, reduced to 3.9, again reduced to 0.9, more reduced to minus 8.2, then make a V-shaped recovery from fall to 9.7 to 10.8% of recovery. In post-pandemic environment, as the COVID lockdown ended, there was a flow of capital 10.8% to 4.7%. Now what we see, that balance of payment was a huge surplus, and as its definition shows, the balance of payment has a current account as well as capital account. So current account was although lacking, but the capital account was a huge leap which made the forex investment, FDI, FPI, FII makes the balance of the surplus, which led to US dollar 63.1 billion. Remember this data for your prelims as well as mains. Okay. Now capital account shows 65.6 billion percentage of GDP to those of H1 on the back of continued inflow of foreign exchanges, mainly external commercial borrowing. Then FDI, FPI were quite high to $25.4 billion in Indian market. Then capital account was again in the first quarter of the pandemic situation. The capital account shows a little decline in the graph, then certain kind of recovery to 12.0, then again a grudge, again it declines to minus 0.5 तक ये decline कर रहा है, then it rise to 17.4 to 24.2%. So FDI to GDP ratio again rising, but in the second lockdown period it reduced to quarter first of 9.5, 2.5 reduction, then rise to 11.7 and then reduced to 9.5 at a moderate level. So remember this data for your prelims as well as mains, how FDI to GDP ratio changes during the COVID pandemic period and the post-COVID pandemic situation. Now Indian economy sought to be recovering, which is shown by the economy survey capital account data. What are important facts? Now agriculture shown a highest growth during the lockdown situation because of agricultural productivity and the migrant laborers which come from the cities to their villages, and they were provided various programs for their development. They were engaged in farming, rural activity, poultry, bovine breeding and cultivation of various kind of products in their rural locality. That is why the agriculture export rises during the sector, and formalization of sector by APIDA, that is Agriculture Processed Food Product Export Development Authority, which provided the formalization of agricultural sector, and ENAM was there, that is National Agricultural Market, with APIDA for formalization and proper selling of agro products. So the APIDA was formed by the Agricultural and Processed Export Development Authority Act of 1985. Remember this fact for your prelims as well as mains. Which act? APIDA Act of 1985. And it functions under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Which ministry, friends? Ministry of Commerce and Industry. And its headquarters is in New Delhi. Again prelims point of view, prelims pointer. So current account comprising the main part of balance of payment surplus, under which there was merchandise goods, invisibles and visibles. So agricultural produce was highest composite of this visible part, agricultural products, leading to surplus of the balance of payment. Despite the 2 years of COVID lockdown scenario, we saw a surplus in balance of payment due to higher agricultural productivity. India comprised of main parts of agricultural produce, in which farming, agricultural, bovine breeding, poultry farming and beekeeping and small vegetables growing, cultivation of crops were there, which leads to surplus of the agricultural produce in export market. Now capital account was instrumental by debt and equity. So debt and equity process was very high during the pandemic period, and the main components of capital account includes foreign investments, loans and banking capital. So in banking the forex was very high, which again makes the surplus of fund for MSME. So MSMEs were supported, micro, small and medium enterprises were supported by government. under the barbell approach, which was a barbell approach to cushion this sector. Now, foreign investment comprising of FDI were comprising of ADR, American Depository Receipts, and GDR, that is Global Depository Receipts, were at very high position, while the loans, that is external assistance, external commercial borrowings, and the trade credits and banking capital, which were under the debt scenario from NRI and depositors at debt liability, were quite low. That again makes the Indian economy one of the most sustained economy of India and provide a certain level of growth throughout the journey of Indian economy in post-COVID scenario. Now we will look into the foreign direct investment, which attracted most in India was the mixture of resources, technology, knowledge, professionalism, and management techniques, and India's economy has been opened more for FDI. So FDI was taken 100% in various sectors via public sectors, in various public sectors via strategic disinvestment. So स्ट्रैटेजिक डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट करके बहुत सारी PSUs के शेयर लिबरलाइज किए गए और बहुत सारे इंडस्ट्रीज़ को गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने ओपन किया जो कि मार्केट में अपने शेयर्स को बेच सके, सच एज डिफेंस रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन DRDO, इंडियन रेलवेज, then space sectors in terms of Antariksh Cooperation and other such sectors which were liberalized and which attracted huge FDI. So 100% FDI is permitted in road building, petroleum, power, and drugs and pharmaceuticals, hotels, and tourism. Very, very important for your prelims as well as mains point of view. So where the 100% FDI is provided, there goes the investment, and it leads to more and more surplus of capital account, more and more manufacturing unit, more trade, and more growth of the economy. So foreign institutional investment doing in the stock market for the purpose of not trading shares, but the corporate debt it concluded under the government securities. So these were highly volatile during the pandemic situation. Still government of India and the Indian market shows so much of positives, and it was highly optimistic market. Therefore the FII was under quite good position. Still it reduced, but still it managed to recover.